The move to charge the lawmakers was, by any measure, an extraordinary attempt by Trump appointees to politicize the criminal justice system, even for a Justice Department that has repeatedly shattered norms of independence from the White House and followed Trump's directives to prosecute his adversaries. But manipulating the bureaucratic levers is not the same thing as controlling the entire justice system. So before Donald Trump's second term, it was extremely rare for any federal prosecutor to walk into a grand jury and fail to get an indictment. And let's talk about the structure of how grand juries work. It's usually 23 or 24 people. They don't all have to be present. And when they vote on whether or not to indict someone, I think it's just a simple majority of the group. I think they have to hit 12 votes, but it does not have to be unanimous. And while a prosecutor is in a grand jury room presenting evidence to a grand jury, the prosecutor is the only other person in the room. These don't take place in a courtroom. The defendant is not present. Their counsel is not present. A judge is not present. It is the prosecutor presenting evidence to the grand jury. And that's why famously that saying has come about that a prosecutor can indict a ham sandwich, because the prosecutor has total control over the environment. But beginning with Donald Trump's second term, it has become increasingly common for federal prosecutors across the country to fail to get indictments. They have failed to get indictments against certain protesters in Los Angeles, Minneapolis, Chicago, Portland, Washington, D.C. Famously in Washington, D.C., we saw last year the guy in shorts and a polo shirt throw a wrapped-up Subway sandwich at a law enforcement official, hitting him in the chest. Jeanine Pirro tried to get that guy indicted on felonies. The grand jury said no. And when Jeanine Pirro indicted him on misdemeanors and took him to trial, the jury acquitted him. That is an example of jury nullification because it happened on video. It happened on video. And the jury in that criminal trial was like, we're not going to convict this guy of a crime. This is bullshit. And so they acquitted him. This situation with the grand jury earlier this week is somewhat different because prosecutors in that kind of a grand jury environment, they have to present facts. They have to present facts that meet a probable cause burden of proof that there's probable cause that a crime may have been committed. That probable cause burden of proof in the grand jury process is much different than the beyond a reasonable doubt burden of proof that would come into play during an actual criminal trial. But it's a super low burden of proof when you're at the grand jury level, and these prosecutors couldn't even meet that. And, you know, I don't use the words hero or heroic or heroism very often, but we're seeing grand juries and criminal juries across the country, and especially in Washington, D.C. These bodies are comprised of everyday citizens that are picked at random. And these people are acting heroically in essentially telling Donald Trump and Jeanine Pirro to take this stuff and shove it up their ass. You know, federal prosecutors asked this grand jury to indict 6 sitting members of Congress who were Democrats. And people who serve on grand juries aren't stupid. They watch the news here and there, at least. They understand the environment in this country. And it just simply is not possible for prosecutors to present to a grand jury that stating on video members of the military are obligated to disobey illegal orders. It's impossible for prosecutors to portray that as a crime by taking those facts and applying it to the law. the laws of seditious conspiracy, which include intent to basically overthrow the government. I mean, Donald Trump and Jeanine Pirro and so many other, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, so many other people in his administration have just approached federal law enforcement like this with the expectation that they can force the criminal justice system to do what they want it to do. And grand juries and trial juries are demonstrating to them that that is not the case. And that is utterly heroic to stand up against this administration and in the face of this administration's authoritarian bullshit. After